Before medicine was a science, it was a performance, a delicate play of superstition, status, and survival. Some remedies came from the earth, others from the sea, and a rare few from sources so astonishing, so extravagant, that their very existence blurred the line between health and luxury. In the candle-lit rooms of medieval apothecaries, among jars of ground herbs and powders of rare minerals, there was one preparation whispered about with awe. Its price alone could feed a family for a year. To possess it was to announce wealth. To consume it was to invite both admiration and envy. And yet, people were not just buying a remedy. They were buying the promise that life could be prolonged, beauty preserved, and death itself delayed. They believed this substance could drive out fevers, heal the wasting sickness, restore strength to the heart, and even ward away the plague. But belief, in medieval days, was a powerful drug of its own, and belief can make people swallow things they never should. Before we begin tonight's unsettling journey into the stranger side of history, remember to subscribe for more long.com but deeply strange tales from the past. Tonight's story may seem glittering at first glance, but the shine hides something unsettling beneath. The gilded cure, beliefs, rituals, and risks in an age when sickness was an ever-present shadow and medicine was more art than science. People searched desperately for remedies that could stave off the slow approach of death. Their world was filled with herbs and roots, prayers and potions. Yet too often these proved powerless against the many diseases that swept through towns and castles alike. It was a time when the line between hope and superstition blurred, and the need to believe in a cure was as vital as the cure itself. Among the wealthiest, there circulated a belief so strange and compelling that it captured imaginations and purses alike. The idea that the purest metal, gold, could be transformed into a medicine, not worn as a jewel or stored as a treasure, but melted down, powdered, dissolved, and swallowed. It was thought that by taking this incorruptible substance into the body, a person could absorb its unchanging strength and extend their life beyond ordinary limits. This belief was not born of simple greed or fantasy. It grew slowly over centuries, nurtured by the teachings of alchemists and scholars who saw gold as the physical embodiment of perfection. In an era when decay and death touched everything, gold alone stood apart, unyielding to rust, unfaded by time. If anything could resist the ravages of illness, it seemed it must be gold. The wealthy embraced this idea with fervor. They lived in gilded chambers where illness was a secret terror, and the price of survival was measured in the gleam of precious metals. A single dose of this golden medicine might cost more than a year's earnings for a craftsman or farmer, making it a luxury few could afford. For them, the remedy was not only a matter of health, but of status, a sign that they were protected by the rarest of gifts, closer to immortality than the rest. Those who could not afford such extravagance turned instead to simpler treatments: bitter herbs steeped in boiling water, salves rubbed on aching limbs, charms worn against evil. Some even sought counterfeit cures, powders dyed yellow, oils scented to mimic the real thing, desperate for any hope that shimmered with the promise of healing. Physicians themselves were divided. Some, steeped in the ancient and mystical knowledge of alchemy, championed the golden cure, prescribing it for fevers, wasting illnesses, and even the faintest signs of age. Others warned of its dangers, cautioning that the metal was heavy and foreign to the human body, yet few dared to challenge a wealthy patron's demand. The ritual of consumption was solemn and deliberate. Gold was never swallowed casually. It was carefully prepared, ground into the finest dust, or dissolved through laborious chemical processes by skilled alchemists in smoke-filled chambers. The resulting elixir shimmered in delicate glass vials, mixed with sweet wine or honey to soften its sharpness. Before drinking, prayers might be whispered, blessings calling on divine protection, as if to sanctify the dangerous act. When the patient raised the cup, their breath held tight. They imagined the golden liquid traveling deep within, cleansing blood and humors, sealing the body against sickness. Some believed it could sharpen the mind, brighten the eyes, and preserve the fading glow of youth. For many, it was a talisman as much as medicine, a physical link to hope in the face of relentless disease. Yet beneath the radiant surface lay a hidden truth. The human body was never meant to digest gold. The metal passed through the digestive system slowly and stubbornly, accumulating in organs, causing weakness and pain often mistaken for the process of healing. The acids and chemicals used to dissolve the gold sometimes lingered in the potion, bringing their own hidden harms. Patients might tremble, lose speech, clarity, or stagger in their steps, signs confused with the natural progression of illness, or a sign that the cure was working. Stories of miraculous recoveries circulated, often whispered in hushed, candlelit rooms. A single survivor's tale could inspire countless others to reach for the golden cure, each swallow a fragile prayer against the shadow of death. Yet just as many quietly succumbed, their passing attributed to fate, divine will, or the severity of their condition, rather than the dangerous remedy itself. Behind the closed doors of nobles' chambers, the desire for life often outweighed the wisdom of caution. To reject the golden cure was to admit failure, to lose face among peers who watched eagerly for signs of recovery or decline. And so, despite its dangers, the ritual endured, a glittering thread woven through the fabric of medieval medicine and belief. In those distant centuries, understanding of the body was framed by the theory of humors, a balance of blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile that governed health and disease alike. Illness was seen as an imbalance, and treatments sought to restore harmony. Gold, incorruptible and eternal, was believed to have the unique power to stabilize this delicate equilibrium. It was thought to expel poisons no herb could touch, seal invisible wounds, and even protect the soul from malevolent forces thought to cause sickness. This belief imbued the golden medicine with a spiritual power beyond its physical form. Consuming it was an act of faith as much as healing, a ritual promising purification and renewal. The shimmering liquid was more than medicine. It was a bridge between the earthly and the divine, a shining hope against the fading light of mortality. Yet, the true cost was hidden beneath layers of faith and superstition. The very thing hoped to heal could slowly poison. The promise of longevity was fragile, sometimes cruel, and still the golden cure remained, a shining mystery, a whisper of eternity, swallowed one precious drop at a time. Imagine yourself walking through the narrow, winding streets of a medieval town. The air carries the scent of wood smoke, crushed herbs, and distant bells. Inside a small chamber, tucked away from the bustling marketplace, a figure bends over a cluttered table, glass vials catching the light, powders and metals spread carefully before them. This person is an alchemist, a seeker of secrets. They are not simply mixing ingredients. They are chasing a dream that has fascinated minds for centuries. The perfect cure. The elixir of life. The goal is not just gold, but something far greater, a substance that could transform not only metals, but the very fabric of life itself. Long before this moment, stories had traveled along ancient trade routes, tales of a mysterious philosopher's stone, capable of turning common metals into pure gold and healing the sick. For generations, scholars and healers believed that gold, shining and eternal, held a power beyond the reach of ordinary medicine. Unlike herbs that wilted or stones that crumbled, gold remained unchanging, untouched by time. It was this idea that inspired the alchemists to take gold beyond its role as treasure and transform it into medicine. Slowly, painstakingly, they learned to grind it into dust, dissolve it with strange acids, and mix it into shimmering liquids that promised to restore the body's balance and banish disease. Meanwhile, doctors and priests looked to ancient teachings for guidance. They believed the body was governed by four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow biland, that health depended on their delicate balance. When this harmony was disturbed, illness followed. Bloodletting and herbal remedies were common attempts to restore this order. But when these failed, gold became a symbol of hope. It was thought to purify the blood, to calm fevers, and even to protect the soul from evil forces. The elite trusted that swallowing a golden potion could stop the body's decline, preserving strength and youth. This belief wasn't born overnight. It was passed down through whispered conversations between healers, written in obscure manuscripts, and practiced quietly in noble courts. No single person claimed its invention. Rather, it was a shared faith that grew over time. The ritual itself was deliberate. A tiny amount of gold dissolved in wine or honey was given in measured doses, often accompanied by prayers or blessings. The act was as much spiritual as medicinal, a ceremony of hope in the face of mortality. Of course, the elixir was not without risk. The process of dissolving gold required harsh chemicals, and sometimes the resulting mixture was more harmful than helpful. Some who took the potion grew weaker, their bodies burdened by a heavy metal slowly accumulating within. Yet these side effects were often explained away, blamed on the illness, or seen as a necessary trial on the path to healing. Across distant lands, similar beliefs took root. In faraway places, gold was woven into healing traditions, its symbolic power transcending cultures. Tales of miraculous recoveries, of strength restored by a golden touch, spread along the trade routes connecting east and west. What kept this belief alive was not proof or science, it was hope. The hope that even the most precious of metals might hold the key to life itself. The desire to grasp something eternal in a world so often marked by loss. And so the golden elixir became more than a medicine. It became a legend, shimmering through the centuries, carried forward by those who dared to believe in its magic. The story of golden medicine stretches far beyond the quiet workshops or glittering halls of the wealthy. Each vial carried more than a liquid shimmer. It carried the weight of landscapes, the toil of countless hands, and the passage of gold across continents. From the moment it was extracted from the earth, often invisible network, shaping economies, societies, and environments along the way. Mining gold was never simple. In remote mountains, along riverbeds, or deep underground, miners worked tirelessly, often facing brutal conditions. Their labor was relentless, measured not in hours but in survival, and the constant threat of illness from dust-laden air or contaminated water. Entire communities grew around these mining regions, where life revolved around the pursuit of the precious metal. Yet the danger and suffering endured by those who dug gold often remained unseen by those who would eventually sip it as medicine thousands of miles away. Beyond human toil, mining reshaped the environment. Forests were cleared, rivers diverted, and soils depleted as gold was extracted from the earth. The land bore the scars of ambition, pits and tunnels that would never fully recover. Each vial of golden medicine carried, invisibly, a trace of these transformations, reminders of the unseen consequences behind the allure of health and longevity. Once extracted, gold entered the arteries of trade. Caravans carried the precious metal across deserts and mountains, while ships braved oceans and storms, linking regions separated by vast distances. Markets from the Middle East to Asia, Africa to Europe, became nodes in a sprawling network where gold was exchanged not only for medicine but for goods, knowledge, and influence. Along these routes, cultures intersected. Techniques for preparing gold, recipes for remedies, and philosophical ideas traveled alongside the metal. Merchants and traders played a pivotal role, navigating political tensions, piracy, and unpredictable weather to deliver gold to distant lands. Their expertise and risk-taking transformed gold from raw mineral into a commodity of immense cultural and economic significance. The ecological and human costs continued to ripple. Mining and transport affected regions far beyond the source. Communities near mines faced altered landscapes, water scarcity, and disrupted food sources, while those along trade routes experienced both opportunity and strain. Gold became a material that connected human ambition to the fragility of the environment, reminder that luxury and aspiration often carry hidden consequences. The risks of perilous travel and the subtle, often overlooked imprint on the land. It was a tangible link between disparate societies, a bridge across oceans and deserts. In reflecting on the journey from mine to elixir, we begin to see golden medicine not merely as a symbol of status or a cultural artifact, but as a lens into the interconnectedness of past worlds. Its shimmer represents human curiosity, ingenuity, and ambition, but also the labor, sacrifice. The golden medicine, in all its allure, reminds us that behind every object of desire lies a web of global connections, stretching across space, time, and the lives of those who never held it in their hands. In a quiet corner of an ancient settlement, archaeologists carefully uncover fragments of a long-past daily life. Among broken pottery and worn tools lies a small, fragile glass vial. Though clouded by time, it still holds traces of golden dust dissolved in liquid evidence of a healing practice that once held great meaning. These kinds of discoveries remind us that the story of drinking gold is more than just old books or rich courts. It's a part of everyday life for many, captured in the objects they left behind. Gold was not only treasure, it was hope. People believed that because gold never tarnished or rusted, it had a special power to protect the body and keep it healthy. But gold was more than a metal. In those times, people thought the body and soul were connected. When someone fell ill, It was often seen as a sign of spiritual trouble or even punishment. Gold, shining and pure, was believed to help cleanse not just the body but the soul, too. The golden medicine looked different depending on where you were. Sometimes it was a drink, sometimes a dust sprinkled on food or mixed with wine. Every village and healer had their own way of using it, mixing old local traditions with the wider beliefs about gold's power. For the rich, drinking gold was also a sign of status. It showed that they had money, power, and even a special kind of favor from God. To sip the golden medicine was to join a secret ritual, something few could afford, but many desired. However, the cure came with risks. Some old medical notes mentioned strange symptoms that doctors could not explain, and modern studies of graves show signs of heavy metal poisoning, a hidden danger that came with swallowing gold. This tells us that the line between healing and harm was very thin. People took risks because the hope of living longer or being healthier was so strong. Despite these dangers, the story of gold as medicine lived on. It became part of culture, appearing in poems, art, and stories. Gold's shining promise was a symbol for purity, strength, and the fight against sickness and death. As you think about this, imagine those ancient bottles, the soft glow of candlelight, and the hope wrapped in every drop of golden liquid. This was a world where people believed in the magic of gold, a magic born from fear, faith, and the endless wish to heal. For centuries, the golden elixir was so much more than a simple medicine. It was a shimmering, glowing promise, a dazzling symbol of wealth, privilege, and the human longing for control over life and death. In the courts of kings and in the quiet, candlelit chambers of nobles, it gleamed in crystal vessels or polished silver goblets, not just as a remedy, but as a statement, a declaration to all who saw it, that here was someone who could command the rarest treasures of the earth for the sake of their own health. It was reserved almost exclusively for the elite, the monarch who ruled over vast lands, the noble whose family crest had endured for generations, the high-ranking clergyman whose voice carried weight in matters of both heaven and earth, and the merchant prince whose caravans brought spices and silks from worlds away. To drink gold was to step beyond the ordinary, into a realm where luxury and healing intertwined. The preparation of this elixir was no small feat. Gold itself had to be purified, ground, and prepared in ways shrouded in secrecy. Each step said to carry both practical and mystical significance. The materials were costly, the labor skilled and time-consuming, all of which made the elixir beyond the reach of common folk. This rarity created a divide, not only of wealth, but of hope. For while the rich sipped this golden promise, the poor relied on herbs gathered from hedgerows, broths brewed in humble kitchens, and whispered prayers in darkened chapels. To swallow gold was not merely to treat illness, it was to embody power, to drink in the idea that one's life could be preserved and protected by something eternal and unchanging. In the minds of those who partook, gold carried the light of the divine itself, capable of warding off decay and misfortune. It was, in a way, a liquid crown, a thing to be worn inside the body rather than on the head. Yet, with the passing of years, something curious and troubling began to happen. Those who drank this shining cure began to notice changes, small at first and easy to dismiss. A lingering fatigue after a morning ride, a slight tremor when lifting a quill, A pause when a familiar name slipped just out of reach in the mind. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, these signs grew. Hands once steady for delicate embroidery or precise swordplay began to quiver. Feet felt heavier, thoughts slower. The most alarming symptom was perhaps not pain, but a quiet fog that settled over the mind, dulling once sharp judgment. Rest offered little relief. Days that had once been filled with confident decisions and lively conversation became slower, quieter. A noble might excuse himself from counsel earlier than before, claiming the need for solitude. A merchant might rely more on his advisors, no longer trusting his own memory to keep accounts straight. The healers and physicians of the age had no knowledge of heavy metal poisoning. They saw these symptoms through the lens of the humoral theory, believing the body's fluids were out of balance, or that the patient suffered from an excess of melancholy or phlegm. Some thought the symptoms were signs of spiritual trial, even blessings in disguise, a test of faith or a purging of the soul. To suggest that the gold itself could be the cause was unthinkable. Gold was pure, incorruptible, divine. How could something so perfect in nature be capable of harm? To question the elixir was to question centuries of belief, and even the wisdom of rulers and saints who had sworn by it. And so the golden cups kept passing from hand to hand, from lips to throat, from hope to hidden harm. Meanwhile, beyond the echoing halls of stone castles and the perfumed chambers of the wealthy, the common people lived in another reality altogether. They did not drink gold. Their remedies were simple. A tisane brewed from chamomile for sleeplessness, a poultice of garlic and honey for wounds, a prayer murmured at the bedside. Their lives were not without suffering, but their medicines were humble and often harmless. They watched from afar as nobles clung to their shimmering cure, unaware of the quiet damage it caused. Over time, whispers began to circulate, perhaps in the servants' quarters, perhaps in the market squares, where news traveled like smoke on the wind, of great lords who had grown strangely feeble, of ladies whose beauty faded too soon, of minds clouded long before age should have claimed them. But such talk was dangerous, and so it was spoken only in low voices, behind closed doors, and still the elixir remained, a symbol of both hope and blindness. It took generations and the slow, patient accumulation of knowledge before learned physicians began to doubt the old ways. By then, the golden cure had left its quiet mark on countless lives, shaping the course of families and even the politics of kingdoms. The golden elixir's story is one of shimmering contrasts, the light of its promise, the shadow of its hidden cost. It speaks of human faith in the things we most desire to be true, and of how difficult it can be to let go of a belief once it has taken root in our hearts. Even now, in an age of science and reason, the tale carries a gentle warning that not all that glitters can heal, and that the line between remedy and poison may be far finer than it appears. So as you rest, perhaps you can picture that ancient goblet, the gold within catching the flicker of a torch or the glow of a candle. Rich, heavy, beautiful, and, as history has shown, not without its dangers. In its reflection, we can see both the yearning and the caution that have always lived side by side in the human heart. And maybe, in that quiet glow, there is something to ponder as you drift gently toward sleep. And so, in the soft closing of this story, the golden elixir remains not only a relic of the past, but a quiet reminder that even the brightest treasures can carry shadows, and that wisdom often comes not from what we drink in haste, but from what we learn in time.